Good evening and welcome to the Golden Road Television Show. I'm your host, Michael DiMartino. Thanks for taking some of your precious time to listen in to community based, bioregional, and independent media. Well, I'm happy to be here tonight. We have a great show for you. And as always, we're going to be showcasing some of the luminaries and solutionaries from our region that are doing amazing work with community resilience in the areas of arts and culture, health and wellness, peace and justice, environment and ecology, and emergency preparedness. So, this is our fourth season doing the show. We've done over 62-hour broadcasts. And I will say, more than ever, what we're doing seems even more pertinent. A, because we're creating an independent media platform. And two, for years, we've been looking at topics like traditional ecological knowledge, environmental and resource management in the areas of forest and water. And we've had some political discourse, and we've been looking at issues that are now even more crucial and heightened at this time. So thanks for tuning in. And remember, Golden Road TV, bridging the past with today for a better tomorrow. And if you're watching the show, please just take a moment to like and subscribe. We are going to be migrating to an independent platform soon. But again, thanks for tuning in and investing some of your precious time into getting educated and hopefully inspired to advocacy and activism in our bioregional community of the Sacramento River watershed. I'm so inspired. As you can tell, we have a great new set, and we have now, I think it's his third or fourth time here. We're going to have discussion tonight with Horacio Roa and Gift of Health, and we're going to be talking about a lot of great subject matter. But give us a little preview of what we're going to talk about tonight.
Good evening. Hello. Thank you for having me, Michael. We have a short time. Then, for me, I try to share important information, which is I think is important information for health. Discipline and habit is something I want to talk about more in relationship with habit. We need to understand health actually is emotional and also is psychological, is not only physical. Then what we talking about our spiritual life or our soul is dependable of this system.
So for people who might be for first-time viewers and for our live studio audience, I want to applaud all of you for showing up tonight and helping to support independent media. Very quickly, since we have such a short time and many guests tonight, tell us a little bit about your background and what makes you an authority to talk on this subject.
Well, I study nutrition. I'm chemist and Chinese medicine. I work in healing for the last 35 years. I started doing yoga when I was 15. Start to practice healing since my 25. I'm 59, and my authority is my experience. I was going deep in a few ideas like action and reaction and discipline and habit, and I became a health coach. My background is something I got from my family. I coming from South American family, Paraguayans and Spanish mixture, and healing is part of our lifestyle. Healing is actually a way of thinking, is a way of feeling, is a way to do our life. It's not a separation. The remedy is not in the bottle. The remedy is something appear when we need it.
And I think that's something that's interesting as I've gotten to know you. Here in the West, we typically have a culture that's been really based on capitalism, consumerism. And what's interesting in my experiences traveling the world, many indigenous and other traditions are based on the idea of that health has been woven into the tapestry of the culture and the importance of good food, the importance of community, things like clean water is really essential, plus the reality of the role of a healthy environment and the connection spiritually, mentally, physically, and emotionally are all part of what help construct good health.
The programming, the relationship with what's going on in our life is basic. How we relate with pain, with illness, and with death create a whole course of decisions and fears. When I was sick, my mother said to me, an angel is coming to visit you. Then in my cultures, we believe illness is a blessing, it's not a punishment. Then each time we are sick, we thinking we have an opportunity to learn, to renew. That is when we realize we need to change our habits, or when we realize we need to have a more disciplinary life, which is we need to make it clear which kind of discipline I'm talking about.
And it's such a fascinating subject. We're talking tonight, of course, about discipline and habits. And I know a lot of people who have children who are heavily invested in video games, so how they develop habits of sensationalistic neuro addiction to constant overstimulus. And then when we put ourselves in a natural environment, how we actually can feel depleted and empty because our neurons are firing in a different way, and other areas of like alcoholism, drug addiction, etc. So I think the idea of habits is such a important thing that a lot of us maybe don't carry an awareness about because we're so involved in the process. So in your opinion, what are some of the most prolific habits and maybe some of the disciplines, and we'll get more into solutions here in a minute. Let's start with, what are some more of the prolific habits that people tend to have that are destructive to their well-being?
Destructive.
Or negative, let's say.
Well, we are destructive and constructive. Humans, we have these two sides in essence. I think self-deprecation and self-pity probably is the most destructive one, when you feel sorry about yourself. Talking about bad habit is not for me really the direction. I more like to talking about to learn new habits, to actually, if you like something, if you like to do something, try to do the things you like more and become practice what you like to do. If you like to cook, or you like to read, wherever you like to do, I think the idea is to expand the time, expand the good time, then expand the good habits, to develop discipline in the things you like to do. If we cannot to develop disciplines in the things we like to do, how are we going to develop disciplines in the things we cannot, or I don't like to do? And actually, get healthy or get stronger or get your goals, you need to do what you don't like to do. This is the first rule. Then the more important rule of successful is do what you don't like to do, and in this way you're going to develop will. And I give you the rule for develop will.
And that's a good analogy. I know a lot of people, whether they're maybe addicted to tobacco or alcohol, and I know studying holistic medicine myself and my background in Tibetan medicine, like you said, if we take something away, we have to kind of replace that or repattern ourselves with something to replace it that's constructive and assists us in our overall well-being. So I think, that's an important element to health, not just taking away the things that don't work, but like you said, adding positive patterns, adding positive alternatives.
Believe it or not, to see the obvious and accept the obvious is one of the more difficult things for us. To accept we are humans and we have needs, and we need crutches sometimes. We need what we call bad habits, really they are process of our growth. We growing up and we learn alcohol is not good for us, but in order to learn, we need to do something of these poisons. These
Which is interesting because I know there's been a lot of research where I think it's called resveratrol. There's certain elements in wine that have antioxidants principles. So I know it's also really important. We just don't create blanket understandings or ideas around certain things, but we have to almost take some level of personal responsibility to research and look into various elements. I do know people who actually use tobacco in ceremony or aspects of healing. Although, again, here in the West, we tend to go for the quick convenience and the inexpensive solution of we buy a pack of cigarettes and then people maybe don't want to commit the time of doing breath work and being able to drop in. So when we have that cigarette, it kind of gives us that connection to our breath. So I think it's really important that we do keep in mind that, what do they say, a tiny bit of poison can be a medicine, homeopathic medicine, to help us in the bigger picture of our spirit, mind, body health.
ideas and beliefs, they are really poisons, not really substance. Then we put our ideas and belief in substance and we make it very bad. But doesn't exist actually bad substance, which is we have inside is pain, which is we need to calm down. Then this pain, this anger needs to get suffocated with substance, but it's not substance. They are not the problem. The problem is what is your belief about to use this substance. If you feel guilty to use this substance, if you think it's bad, then when you think something is bad, is actually when you become bad. Then the control of addictions or the control of drug substance is actually based in develop a good habit, not in fight with the bad ones. When you fight the bad ones, it's like to cut the head of one snake and grow in 7 more. Then I don't suggest to fight with bad habits and addiction. I suggest to get educated and try to increase your self-love, increase your self-appreciation, and understand that's what I do, like a healer, to understand people, where is coming from the anger, where is coming from the frustration, and learn how to use it, because this anger and frustration is gold, is a source of a lot of courage, and can be an artist behind of an addicted person, and he can transform his pain in a beautiful form of art.
And actually, these things can also be road signs along our evolutionary path to help us kind of find the margins. Like, okay, we're getting too much into self-pity, we're getting too much into greed, maybe too much into jealousy, too much into negative perception. And these things are there as kind of bumpers to help us get back on the road that we're more intuitively resonant with, we're more connected to, and we feel, we can feel in our spirit, our mind, our body when we're experiencing state of health and equilibrium and balance.
One of the synonyms of illness is numbness. Then we are we are sick, we are numb, and not only the body get numb, our heart get numb, and our intelligence get numb, and we start to get very confused and disoriented.
I think that's why zombie movies are so big these days.
Well, you can see that in the street right now. I see zombies for the last 20 years. But the way how you get up in the morning and your projects, your goals, your children, your family, your friends, then to commit daily suicide is a lifestyle in these days. And the big problem is people, they take this lifestyle like a fashion. No, it's fun to destroy myself, and is part of the zoo, and we born in the zoo and we grown up in the zoo. We think everything's
And I
fine.
can even see where spirituality. I'm actually an interfaith minister. I went through a very extensive 3-year program of theology and metaphysics, existentialism, hands-on healing. We studied Freud, Jung, parapsychology, and what we find is a lot of people, they say fake it till you make it. A lot of people can actually wear spirituality as a fashion. I think in the fashion world, we see so many people wearing flowers of life and Buddha shirts and having a certain dress, but that alone is not making them healthier or happier. So I will say this: we have just a minute or two left, but I want to talk more upon disciplines, and then of course we want to make sure we give people your information. You're also going to be here this Sunday for the Alchemy Spirit, Mind, Body Expo that we have. If you're interested, you can go on Golden Road Productions on Facebook. Again, we're moving to independent platforms. Find out more. We have very limited capacity to observe some level of healthy social distancing, but we will have a dozen amazing practitioners there who deal with magnetic frequencies, doing bioacoustic sound medicine, herbalists, also people who do Tibetan medicine, and yourself. So we want to invite you to get in touch with us to be part of that unique monthly happening. If you're just tuning in, you're watching Golden Road TV show. I'm your host, Michael DiMartino. Golden Road, bridging the past with today for a better tomorrow. And I'm very happy to have on the show today, and he's actually been here for a few weeks. We're exploring actually him having, he's already doing it, but him having his own show and doing some more collaborations. But I'm really honored to have in the studio from Holistic Eye, Horacio Roa. So another round of applause, please, for Horacio.
Thank you.
And I love last time you were on the show because we try to give our audience a little tidbit, a little nugget of something they can take from the show and practically apply. So I know it's not that easy, but what words of wisdom and insight can you leave us with this evening around habits and discipline?
Use your pain. Then pain is not for waste. Don't numb your pain. Be a little bit more courage. Use it a little bit. Be careful with medicines numb your pains. Probably aspirin is okay, and a little beer. But a pain is a teacher, and illness is a doctor. Try to think a little bit why you are on pain.
All right, thank you. One more time, Horacio Roa. I do want to thank all the people that helped make this show possible. Right off the bat, I think you can notice we actually have a real set. So I want to thank both KT and Giselle for their amazing work. And we also want to thank Spirit House for actually being a local business to donate the use of these amazing pieces to make our set beautiful. So thank you, Spirit House, for all the work that you do in your community. And as you know, during this time of shelter in place, a lot of businesses are really suffering to stay open. And this is how people feed their families. This is how people pay their mortgages and their rents. And it's really a sad state of affairs. But like we were speaking about, it gives us the opportunity to dig deep into ourselves as a community, to innovate and to collaborate and to implement new ideas and solutions of how to bridge this time that can be so challenging and really dark and sad for a lot of people. So as dark and sad as it is, we also see it as an opportunity for accelerated evolution. I'd also like to thank Tara Riley, who's here helping to do the switching tonight. Thank you so much, Tara. Tara Kelly. She's been committed for years working with us with Golden Road TV show. We want to thank Jim Heck as our advisor and Steve Nathan and all the people that helped make this happen. We're going to have next coming up Dennis McFadden from the House of McFadden. We're going to talk about peace and justice and some of the work he's doing. And also, we have him back tonight. He's taken a little hiatus, and he's back. I want a nice round of applause and thank you so much for Ten Headwood for being our director this evening. So we're gonna have a little musical interlude with Michael Shapiro, one of our pre-produced theme songs, and we'll be back with Dennis McFadden in about 60 seconds. So stay tuned. Lots more show here on the Golden Road.
It's the Golden Road TV show. It's the Golden Road TV show. Well, bridging the past with today for a better tomorrow.
Golden Road explores the intersection of arts, environment, culture, health, peace, justice, science, and technology, paving the road for positive social change.
It's the Golden Road TV show. It's the Golden Road TV show.
And we're back again. Thank you so much, Horacio, for the gift of health and the knowledge and wisdom that you bring. So our next guest is another luminary in our community, and he's been working for really many decades. Recently, we started to pioneer a series called We the People, which is really about looking all the way about the origins of the United States. Unfortunately, a lot of that, again, is a dark history of slavery and genocide towards indigenous people, towards Asian Americans and African Americans. But nonetheless, the promise of a new society being born through a various process of the Revolution, Articles of Incorporation, a Declaration of Independence, and of course the forming of the Constitution. A gentleman who is a wealth of knowledge and has contributed a lot of insight and advisorship to us over the last year or so. He's also been very instrumental in helping to establish Nevada County People's Assembly. A nice round of applause for Mr. Dennis McFadden. So to start off with, it's really been an honor. I'm looking forward to starting to include in our show some of these excerpts we've been doing that have been extremely educational. But why don't we wind the clock back a few years of how did you get interested and involved in this work to unravel the mystery of the Constitution and the formation of the United States, and we'll get into what that means for people now.
Well, it actually started back in the early 90s. I met a lady, Marcia, and I started coming up here to Grass Valley once a week to basically learn about the Constitution and home rule. And then that just led on to more and more study and started digging into our real history. And what it did is it brought me in touch with a lot of other people from all over the country, from pretty much almost every state of the union, who were also on the same path that we were out here. So it's been, a 30-year ride, to say the least, and there's been a lot of people who've come and gone in that period of time. A lot of good people.
Right. And what was interesting in the time we've spent together, and again, applause to you for helping to midwife this Nevada County People's Assembly. So bravo to you and to Joe and all the people that helped make that possible. But what's fascinating is, even though I studied history in school, they didn't teach us about the implications of history and how that plays in today. So in a few minutes, could you kind of help quickly unravel how the whole process began from when we left Europe and the different stages of what brought us to the Constitution? And then we'll talk a little more about how is that relative for people today?
Ah, boy. That's, well, it has a lot to do with both religious and economic persecution that went on in Europe from the whole period going all the way back into the Roman Empire, the so-called Dark Ages, the Renaissance, where there was a period of so-called enlightenment, but it was pretty much a reaction to the tyranny of the various monarchies of Europe and how they were oppressing their people in so many ways, economically, spiritually, religiously. And they were pretty much, for the most part, serfs and slaves, and they were tired of it. They were just tired of it. They were looking for a better future, whatever that brought. So,
And it's interesting because I think they say history repeats itself. We can see many aspects of that in today's world, whether we're looking at sub-equatorial cultures or even aspects of what's happening here currently in our own society here in the United States.
yeah, I mean, I was listening to our previous guest, and it just brought to mind something that was pointed out to me by who I consider to be a real sort of native spiritual mentor for me. And years ago, John Trudell did a whole series of lectures and presentations. And one of them that struck me the most was whatever happened to the tribes of Europe. And so what's happened on our planet and what's been going on for literally thousands of years is a war against the indigenous people of this planet. And it doesn't matter what color your skin is or where you're from, it's been a war against the indigenous people. And when you talk about indigenous people, everybody thinks, oh yeah, the Native Americans. Well, there's also Native Scandinavians and Native Irish and Scottish and Native Slavic peoples and Native Mongolians. And when you start to look at the cultures from around the planet, when you start to look at the indigenous cultures, you realize that there are so many amazing similarities throughout history. And it's, we haven't been taught our history. We have not been taught a real history of this planet and or our culture. And that's by design. It's a reason to limit our ability to interact with each other.
Right. Well, and what's the old saying? Divide and conquer. Right?
Exactly. Divide and conquer, yeah.
Right.
Whatever way we can do it. Oh, he's the old white guy, it's like, oh my gosh, not that.
Well, again, all these messages and history repeating itself is stuff that we've seen, again, so prolific, even with the two-party system here in our country, Democrat versus Republican. Then we have what's been happening in the African-American community, Black Lives Matter, and then people will say all lives matter, and then blue lives matter. So it's so interesting to me that everyone has a flag to wave in a country of free speech, or supposedly free speech, because we know a lot of things are censored and edited, and I'm hoping YouTube doesn't edit what I just said. But everyone seems to have a flag or banner they want to wave, but it's not about unification. It's about this extreme multiverse of polarization and opposition and conflict. So it's again a theme that's still relevant. So we're going to get more into it in the series, but can you tell us, so when people left Europe to escape this oppression on all levels, they came here and there was a process of or stages of declarations and proclamations that happened. Can you give us a quick timeline of how those things came in succession? And maybe we can dive more in at some point about what they actually meant with the series that we're doing.
Wow. How many minutes do I have?
I'd say like another 5 minutes.
Let's see.
U.S. history in 5 minutes.
U.S. history in 5 minutes.
He can do it. I know this gentleman. He's brilliant. So again,
Well, there was a whole. One of the things that Thomas Jefferson addressed in the Declaration of Independence is the natural law. Okay, the natural law being God's law, and having been subject to the common law of England, the Roman civil law that was also imposed by England, and the merchant law, Admiralty Maritime Jurisdiction, you have a whole body of laws designed for one thing, and that's oppression. How can you possibly know or understand 60 million volumes of law that are on record with the Library of Congress? I mean, it's absurdity, it's insanity. The law, the reason the people came here is because the law that they were following was a law that was written on their hearts, okay? And that was the thing they had in common with the indigenous people here. And they were looking for a chance to build a life for themselves. And, the problem, like you were saying, talking about, all the divide and conquer and the parties and everything else. And, we've got capitalism and communism and all of these ism things. And we don't even really understand the words that we're saying or using. We don't understand what it is that we're being subjected to. And we have little, if any, real historical perspective of where we came from or where we're going. How can it's kind of like driving down the road, looking in the rearview mirror. Oh, wow, it's really nice back there. And then you hit a telephone pole. I mean, there's a real disconnect in terms of our ability as a people to sit down and have meaningful discussions like we used to. We were talking earlier before the whole thing started about how nice it was back in the days when we'd sit around the dinner table and talk for hours. And that's something that, it's like we've got to get into a 3-second soundbite. We've got to get it into 2 minutes. And that's not possible. We've got to completely disconnect from this artificial reality that's been imposed upon us through this layers and layers of law and illusion, because that's what it is. It's all an illusion.
and even media, especially
Absolutely.
corporately backed media. I mean, we call it television programming for a reason, because it's very much tied into programming people, spoon feeding them the reality that they want to sell as people being seen as consumers and commodities. I think what's really disturbing and interesting is just recently the stock exchange is now trading water as a commodity, as a resource, and not actually the source of life. And it's becoming actually more valuable than gold and oil. So I think we're really at this kind of even a heightened red alert on planet Earth, where the building blocks, food security, and now we're getting more awareness about the idea of genetically modified food and how these are being controlled by various corporate interests, and really all across the board, this incredible exploitation of our human spirit and our divine relationship and divine law that connects us all as human beings, regardless of race, religion, color, etc.
And our energy. Our energy is what drives this planet, period. We human beings, and when I say human beings, I'm talking about the human beings as defined by that wonderful sage, Black Elk. We are the human beings. And we belong to this planet. We belong here. And there have been interlopers who have come in to do one thing, and that's to exploit us and to use our energy for their own nefarious purposes. And there's, like I said, there's so many words, Michael, that people, they talk about communism and capitalism and free enterprise. Well, what does that all mean? What do all these isms mean? What does it mean to be a Democrat or a Republican? What does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be a human being? I mean, there's so many things that we really need to stop and think about what it is we're saying and doing every day.
Let's leave it on a compelling note like that, because I think asking questions, and again, we're trying to make the show interactive. We want to remind you can post comments and questions on the YouTube channel during the broadcast of the show. We have actually our next guest coming up, Marcia Ann, who's a public minister who's going to elaborate on some of these topics we're talking about, and actually was an influence on a lot of your work, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. So,
Yeah.
Dennis Ward from the House of McFadden, thank you so much for your time. Nice round of applause.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. We're going to have another little quick musical break. We'll be back in 1 minute with our next guest on our Peace and Justice extended segment tonight. And this is music by Michael Shapiro, who did some music production. Maybe you have some ideas. Let us know. Maybe you can help us with some content and jingles here on the Golden Road Show. We'll be back in about 60 seconds after this musical break.
It's a golden road, TV show. Yes, it's a golden road, TV show. It's a Golden Road TV show.com.
Great. And we're back. And I'm really still just kind of assimilating everything that Dennis spoke about in this very short time. And I think he posed some really important questions. We're going to continue on the topic of peace and justice, and we're going to look at more the concept of sovereignty. This is someone we're in discussion with, actually starting a pilot of a show that could be working with her and Dennis. But a nice round of applause for our next guest, public minister, correct? Marcia Ann.
Yes.
Great. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So I just want to compliment you on your work. I know you've been many decades doing many incredible works. We found out a little bit more about what you're doing with sovereignty, and a lot of us are aware that the United States government actually is a corporation that we subscribe to and become a product of. But again, let's rewind the clock a little bit. And how did you get interested in and really involved in doing the work that you're doing now as a public minister and educating people about their sovereignty?
It was quite an evolutionary process for me, and I really use evolution as the real word of what's happening. It was because in my young life, when I went to college, one of the reasons that I quit college is because they were going to make me take a history course. And I somehow I slipped through the cracks in my first year of college, and I didn't have a counselor, so I took what I wanted to take. And then all of a sudden I had a counselor, and they said, no, you're going to take this course, and it's going to be history. And I said, wait a minute, I'm paying you, right? And they said, yes. And I said, then I'm going to tell you what courses I'm taking. And they said, no. And I said, see you later. And I checked out of college and I took jobs that paid me to learn what I wanted to know. I thought that that didn't make any common sense at all, to pay somebody to, and I knew I wouldn't be interested in reading it, and I wasn't going to study this general having this war and studying all this, because it was war after war after war, and I wasn't interested in war. So I quit college. But then when I started having children, my whole perspective of life started changing, and I thought, I really have to figure this out a little bit more. And I started studying history, but not studying history about what the book said about it. I actually started collecting history books so that I could actually show people, and I thought I was going to write a book about it, I still might, to show you how the one principle, one something that's been told in history changed from this book to this book to this book to this book, and they're all textbooks. How was one principle being taught, and the thought that we have about it was being altered by what we were being told along the way over time? Yes.
So what you're implying is that there's been a changing narrative to entrain or appear to teach people a certain story that was part of a larger agenda, and your work on your journey of discovering your sovereignty based on true history, that you started to kind of make these realizations that assisted you in your path, which is now allowed you to help other people on their journey.
Well, specifically, yes, absolutely. Because what I would do is I would study something, and then I would go in front of a room of people who were interested in studying, and I present what I found for the week. And I did that here in Nevada City for 2.5 years. I was every Tuesday night in front of a room sharing what I was reading, sharing what I was researching. And a lot of it had to do with law. A lot of it had to do with all of the what I call diversion, because when you really understand the law and the laws that are out there, number one, they're there to scare you because they're so overwhelming, you couldn't possibly know about it. And number two, it's the remedies that are designed there are designed to not exhaust your administrative or exhaust your remedies, they're designed to exhaust you. So how do you bypass that and kind of rise above it in such a way that you become powerful and effective? That's an expression of sovereignty. That's an expression of your divinity not being modified or altered or diffused. All the fear and all the propaganda, we were born into the flow of a flow of thinking, of a flow of law, of a flow of social fear that actually moves us. It moves us away from our common sense, away from that higher divine sense that we come in with. At some point in time, we go from examining blades of grass and talking to bee flies to the fear and we're limited down into not only fear, but our lowest common denominator of learning through the education system, the regimented social programming, the fear that is designed to pigeonhole us, what I call on the plantation, into that limited expression. Our divine expression is unlimited. Our soul is unlimited, and what we're yearning for, and what I see more people yearning for all the time now, is returning to that expression of the full divinity. We have courts, we have schools, we have the media. There are so many issues, and especially right now, we have Insurrection Act. What the heck is that? That's all scary. It's all out there. It's way out there. And I tell people, go to the highest peak in the Rocky Mountains and throw a quarter to Washington, D.C., and see how much comes back. Throw it away as far as you can. Where you're most effective is right here. Where you're most powerful is right here in expressing in your community and in your divinity. So what I started to do, and I've done many bodies of studies, and I've written compiled what I call discussion series. Constitution 101, what is the Constitution? What is it not? How does it interact with the courts? How does it interact with you? What is your relationship with the Constitution? And that's a 12-week discussion series.
And of course, this is a topic that in the 15 or 20 minutes that we have, we can't fully cover. Could you, in 60 seconds, give us a brief understanding of what's happening right now with war powers and the Insurrection Act? Because I think it's in the news, it's very prolific in media, but a lot of people don't understand that.
Well, I've recently started a discussion with people who are interested from the local Nevada County Assembly, and just had our first conversation on Sunday evening. And what I did was I went and did a body of research. I searched and read for a year. And while I'm running around singing, I ain't going to study war no more, what I realized is the study is, I first read Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu says, know yourself, know your adversary, and victory is assured. So we started in this study of war powers. I read all the statutes of large around Abraham Lincoln. I read all of the letters. I've read everything that I could possibly read to understand war powers. I read Sun Tzu.
So sorry, just in the time left, so what was the deduction of how that's pertinent for people in today's world?
It's pertinent for us because right now, with we right now find ourselves in a proclamation of insurrection, like with Abraham Lincoln, and we need to understand, number one, who we are. What's that relationship to us? What I found by studying the war powers was that there was this very narrow conduit that rose above war powers and literally became protected by war powers, that there actually is in the Army Field Manual 2710, in the Trading with the Enemy Act, all of that, you kind of squeeze yourself up above war powers and become protected and even entitled to free passage through what we're now in, occupied territory. So that is why you see I've named myself as a public minister in itinerary. I'm a sojourner. I'm a minister of peace. And now I have immunity from war powers because I know who I am in that full expression of divinity.
And part of that is, if I understood right, maybe when we come in, we get our birth certificate, our Social Security, our driver's license, we're continuing to subscribe into the system. But in the brief time that we had to discuss, you talked about how you've sacrificed a lot of those things, but in the sense you still have the ability to drive. You have a certain level of sovereignty, and I believe even in relationship to paying income taxes or those types of things. Could you briefly accentuate some of the privileges that you enjoy and why you decided that being sovereign or being a sojourner?
Those are very good questions, and behind those questions is a line of thinking, because first what traps us is the thinking and the language. I am not in any way, shape, or form exercising a privilege. I am immune from the trappings of all of that. There's a thing called the Foreign Sovereign Immunity Act that is recognized, and a public minister in itinerary as a minister of peace has an immunity, not a privilege, not an exemption. And every one of us come in, as long as we're going from point A to point B and we're not damaging anybody, there's no injured party, we have the right and the freedom to go as a divine being. The trappings that we have, the codes that we have, the form of thinking that we have, and all those things that you mentioned, yes, we've been trapped into that. Those are all forms, but the substance of our thought is really what the power is behind those. That's the substance. Even in law, it says substance over form. And when you know who you are and your actions follow your words, you being a man or woman of your word, that's the substance that's seen in the world.
It's like walking your talk.
Yeah, walk your talk. Exactly.
So I know we could go on for a while, and I want to invite you and Dennis back. I think this warrants a whole series of shows that we could do. I know you have some workshops that you're doing that I've committed to coming out and
I do.
helping to archive some of your work and this legacy, which is so pertinent for the next generation, millennials and people who, again, are being taught a certain narrative. So I'm really intrigued in opening up this conversation this evening and establishing a relationship with you. And I thank you for your decades of commitment. You also have some events coming up in the next few days that people can get involved in.
I have some plans going on, yes, in addition to the conversation that we're having for opening up the study of what is called Mastery of War Powers. My working title, and I prefer to call it Winning Without Fighting. And we're going to be having that conversation beginning and evolving into the community. Also, I am, with regard to some of the oppression that's happening, I would call it, in our community and the oppression of thinking, I'm going to be opening up evidentiary hearings in order for people to examine the real facts about, is there a pandemic, what's going on here, are the mandates reasonable, where's common sense with regard to where we find ourselves in this soup of insurrection acts.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
I also, again, want to take a moment once again to thank Spirit House for their incredible addition to helping to design out our set and sponsoring the set. Again, thank you so much, KT and Giselle, for making that happen and giving your divine feminine touch to the show. I also want to thank the Kombuchery, who are a local-based kombucha house supporting communities, supporting the arts, and all the great work that they do. So thank you so much, Patrick and Sean, for all that you do for our community. And in a minute here, I'm going to enjoy one of your Gold Vibe kombuchas. But we have so much more to cover, and we only have just about 10 minutes left. So again, thank you so much. We're going to switch gears now to Being Green. And we have our next guest up, Maratuli Mahia, and she's doing a lot of incredible work internationally with Weaving Worlds. We'll take a little musical interlude with Michael Shapiro, and we'll be back in 60 seconds for the last 10 minutes of the show. Again, thank you for watching Golden Road TV, and we'll be back in just a moment.
It's a Golden Road TV show. It's a Golden Road TV show. Well, listen once, listen twice. Oh, won't you please take my advice? It's the Golden Road TV Show.com.
And we're back. Great. I just want to compliment Tara tonight, doing an amazing job switching in the lower thirds. So thank you so much, because without you, this show would not be happening. And you have the cutest quarantine mask I've seen. I love the kitty look for you. So welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Michael DiMartino, and we're going to get right into it now with our limited amount of time. I do want to invite her back because I'm really excited about helping to support and bring to more light the work that she's doing internationally. But a nice round of applause for On Being Green, our next guest, Maratuli Mahia with Weaving Worlds.
Thank you,
got
Michael.
a bigger applause than I've ever gotten. Wow, that's good. Must be the.
It must be the colors.
Nice, bravo.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael.
Of course. So honored to have you here, and honored to have you here in our community for a while in your schedule of so many international travels. Tell us a little bit about. Well, let's get right into it, about yourself and and what Weaving Worlds is.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Marituli, and I'm first of all a pioneer for Mother Earth, and a universal seed guardian. I've been working with children throughout the years. I've developed alternative education programming, and from there, I kind of got. I started I'm co-founded an initiative called Weaving Worlds, and it's a collective initiative made up of different philanthropists, healers, activists, and artists who are working to support different projects that are working on promoting social change and environmental sustainability around the world.
Wow. So you're here in our community for a while, although I know you're planning a trip to Peru.
Yeah, I'm going to go Sundance in Peru. I leave February 10th, so put your prayers out there for me. Eat a lot, drink a lot of water, and I'll be laying our prayers for our community here.
Fantastic. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I was really inspired in the brief time that we've gotten to know each other, because not only are you doing this incredible work, but you're actually self-funding a lot of it, and you're also on the ground doing a lot of the grassroots fundraising to help implement these educational programs in Central and South America. So in Weaving Worlds, what would some of these programs look like, and what have been some of your successes in places that you've done programs?
Yeah, of course. So Weaving Worlds goes into different communities, and we try to actually see what the community needs. So we go into underprivileged communities and try to actually see what the community could benefit from. So in the past, we've done different alternative education programming, or we've installed different what we call transcultural beehives. And basically, our transcultural beehives are education centers where we teach the basics. So many of us are so used to having access to so much information, yet we forget that in so many parts of the world, many people don't know the basics about nutrition, about movement, about just in general overall well-being. So what we do is we empower communities, and that way that creates community resiliency by giving them the tools and free access and information to these things. We encourage children to come and take arts classes. We have free music classes. We teach them about healthy sweets. Some people don't know something as simple as you can replace sugar with dates. So many people are still using things that we have maybe steered away from a long time ago, because we have had the privilege and knowledge of knowing what's good for our bodies and not. And so some of the projects we've worked in El Salvador. We started a permaculture design garden in a school where they had no idea permaculture. When we went there, actually, they were making fun of us because they were like, there's no way the sticks are this. They looked at us like we were ridiculous.
So what's interesting, of course, permaculture, and we have the honor of having Cathay Fish in our community, who worked with Bill Mollison, who's kind of one of the organizers of what we now know as permaculture. But a lot of that is based on traditional ecological knowledge, but somehow these communities, through whatever means, have lost a lot of this traditional knowledge that help inspire a lot of this aggregating of knowledge. So why do you think that is?
You know what? It's interesting. I think so many people have just gotten brainwashed by the Matrix and actually don't have access to it. We had a program in Colombia called Reza Rural. And, people from Colombia there, we know, like most of our ancestors, we for sure were working with the earth. We know that we were planting our food, and we know that we were harvesting, the benefits of eating from the earth. Some of these people imagine living in a place where that is for sure what their ancestors were doing, had never planted a single seed in their life. And so we actually taught them how to have their own garden, which was incredible to me, that none of these people in their 30s and 40s had never actually put a seed in the ground. And that actually empowers them, because so many people across the world, we forget, are just trying to put food on the table. So, we get to go to yoga classes, we get to go to traditional Chinese medicine programs, we get to do all these other things. And so many people would love to do that. The reality is that they don't have the funds to do it. So amongst us all, we have everything. We now need to start a sacred economy where we can use the abundance of resources and actually start circulating it back to those places where we know that just by sharing information benefits the whole, because we want more people to be empowered. That's what empowers the human race. That's what empowers us as a whole. We need more people having more information, and that actually gives them the light. So many people have had zero access to these things. So I think they lose touch because in the governments they're in, the communities they're in, they haven't been exposed to any of it. And unfortunately, so many people are still plugged into the matrix. They're only listening to the news. They still believe everything they're told. And I think it's up to us, we serve as bridges to really come in there and share the information. So what Weaving Worlds is we tie ancestral wisdom, nutrition, and community building into these things to remind them of who they are, because they already have it in them. And by doing so, we do work with women and kids, and we inspire them to remember. We're all born knowing. We just have to remember. We have to spark something in our body that recalls the cells in our whole being to actually know who we are and to be able to recall some of these ancestral, solutions that we've been having. Thank you. Yeah.
So in your travels, what have been some of the biggest challenges that you find, and how, for people watching this broadcast or who meet you, how can they lean in and support you or support Weaving Worlds or the program, and to help maybe get over some of these obstacles or challenges, or at least let these challenges become learning experiences to evolve your agenda of this incredible work that you're doing?
Yeah, of course. So we've run into so many challenges, and I believe that everything has a solution. So whenever a challenge comes up, you just create a positive solution, because that just makes it better, and because it is what it is. So some of the things we've run into is resourcing and getting people to really come and help support on a financial side. And we have plenty of volunteers who come and give their time, which is significant to us because, we really appreciate and value people's time. That's worth more than so many other things. And sometimes we've run into actually cultural barriers. So between the communities we work with a lot of indigenous communities and a lot of Latin-based traditional communities who are still really influenced by religion and other social constructs, and opening up their mind. So I would say, when you do travel, as a piece of advice, or when you are with these different communities, just remember to be kind, and instead of try to impose any sort of view or any sort of teaching or belief, be open-minded to receive what they say and share from a kind place so that they're more receptive to hear. So many of these people are so ready, and they're sponges. They want to absorb it all up. So remember, don't create a difference between the people who know and don't know. Just be open-minded and know that sometimes they might not be used to who we are. And so it's important to find a way to communicate and to just soften that.
Fantastic. So you're based here now, and if people would like to get in touch with you, or you have a website or email you could share?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is weavingworlds.org, and our email is weavingworldsteam@gmail.com. We've been based here in Nevada City for this last year, and we took a pause because of the pandemic. And now we're moving forward, and we're actually going to be working with communities to create regenerative projects in terms of rewilding forests. So I'm going to go into communities now, and we're going to use the whole community to start planting trees, native trees in that area, so they start contributing and having a relationship with the earth, because that's what it's about.
Wow. So I just want to acknowledge the triple threat. You're very articulate and not only well-spoken, but obviously you have a deep understanding of the work that you're doing. Two, that you are really representing, I would say, the voice of another generation, even going back to Marcia, another generation of empowered women whose voice needs to be heard.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael.
And you bring a lot of beauty to the show, so thank you for that. And good luck on your journeys to Peru, and safe travels with the Sundance, and we'll be sending you our thoughts and prayers. And I would love to have you back on the show, and maybe we could explore having some video for some of your travels, and we could kind of take people to some of the places to show them some of the work that you do.
Absolutely. I'd love to share some of the content and the videos we've taken. And remember, teamwork makes the dream work. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, so that'll about do it for another show here of Golden Road TV. Again, bridging the past with today for a better tomorrow. a big thanks to Ted Henwood for being our director tonight, Tara Kelly for switching, for Giselle and KT for helping to design the set, for all of our guests, Horacio, for Dennis and Marcy and Maratuli, and for you for watching the show, and not only watching it, but hopefully we're helping to inspire you to become part of the solution to build this new paradigm in our Nirvana city, City of Light, as spoken by Edgar Casey, to co-create these templates for a new design for humanity. So thank you so much, and be safe, enjoy the snow and the rain, and we'll see you same place, same time next Tuesday at 7 p.m. here on YouTube, and everyone be safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're good.
Follow the golden road, follow the golden road, follow, 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 follow the golden road. We're off to see the Golden Road TV show. You'll find it is a whiz of a show, if ever a show there was. It's arts and culture and history, environment, health, technology, and peace and justice, science, just because of the meaningful things it does. We're off to see the Golden Road TV show.